Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's PolicyMap webinar for California State Library. My name is Aaron Klein. I am PolicyMap's account manager, and I'll be walking you through some of our newest data sets and features today. I would like for this webinar to be interactive, so if anyone has any questions during the session, please feel free to type them into the chat. I'm going to do my best to keep an eye on it, and I'll also leave time toward the end of the session to answer any questions. If you're more of a hands-on learner like I am, I recommend following along by opening PolicyMap on your own computer and go through the features along with me. Now, in case you aren't sure how to access PolicyMap, I've put the URL in the chat, but you should also be able to find us by searching for PolicyMap on the California State Library website. If you don't already have an account set up, you'll just need to fill out this quick form here. So if you click where it says complete this form on the login page, just a few steps here. And then once you submit that, one of the admins will be able to set you up with access. So the main goal of this session is to highlight some of our newest data sets and features. On Monday, our data team added just over, I think it was about 1,000 new census ACS indicators that greatly expand coverage of demographic, housing, health, and education data sets within the tool. So I'll be showing you some of those brand new data sets and how you can customize that data on the map. I'll also cover our annotation tool and our new data loader filter feature, which allows users to create filters for their uploaded point data sets. But before I dive into all that, I do want to go over some of the basics of the tool, just in case any of you are new to PolicyMap. Someone asked, is the chat disabled? It shouldn't be. Let me just check those settings really quickly. So you should be able to type into the chat. If that's not working, just let me know. But yeah, the chat should be working. All right, so once you log into the tool, this is what you'll see. So it's going to hover over the state of California here, and you'll see those California State Library districts on the map. If you want to remove those, you can just go over to the legend on the left side of the screen and click on this X icon. And if you ever want to add those back to the map, they can be found under this California Library Data tab over in the top left here. Okay, so my apologies that the chat's not working. Just give me 1 second to see if I can fix that. It's very strange because I did not change any of the default settings, and typically it does allow attendees to type into the chat here. Okay, if I can't get that working, I'm going to give you my contact information at the end of the session. So if anyone does have any questions, you can just reach out to me directly. So As far as basic navigation goes, at the top of the screen here, you have the location search bar. This allows you to navigate down to an address, a city, a zip code, or any of these other geographies here. And if I search for something like a city, so I'll type in Fremont here, it's going to zoom in and draw that city boundary onto the map for me. And this search bar only works for one geography at a time. So unfortunately, you can't search for something like multiple zip codes or multiple cities at one time. However, if you go over to the top left corner of the map here, you'll see this boundaries menu. And this contains all the different boundaries that are in PolicyMap. And for just about every single boundary that you see in this menu here, there's going to be some sort of data set in the tool that's been aggregated to that boundary or geography. And if we select one of these, let's maybe look at zip codes here. Now I can view all of them at the same time. But one of the really unique features of PolicyMap is that you can actually go in and create your own custom boundary or custom region. So if there's maybe a certain service area that you're doing work in, what you can do is go over to this custom region icon at the top of the screen here. That's going to open up what we call the custom regions menu. And within here, you can view all the custom regions that you've created previously. So these are both of mine. And then if you click where it says create region at the top here, you can then create a new custom region. And there are 3 different types of custom regions in PolicyMap. So the first one here allows you to draw a custom region onto the map. And you can either do that by dropping points like I am here, or by clicking and dragging to draw a shape. The second type is our assembled region. I would say that this one is probably used the most often amongst the 3 with our users. And what it allows you to do is take pretty much any of the boundaries in PolicyMap, and you can assemble them to make your own unique region. So using the drop-down menu here, let's say maybe there's a certain target area that you're doing work in that consists of maybe several different census tracts. What you can do is select census tract from the drop-down menu. That's going to put those boundaries onto the map here. And then all you need to do is simply click to select the geographies that you want to include. Now, once you're done with that, you can click continue at the bottom here. And you're able to give that custom region a name, a description, and then down toward the bottom here, you can customize it a little bit. Then once you click save at the bottom, that custom region is going to show up at the top of your menu here. And then the third and final type is going to be this radius region. And this one allows you to create a custom region around a specific point. To do that, you can either just click onto the map to drop a point, or you can type in an address in the search bar here and then adjust the radius. So those are the 3 different types of custom regions. And then once you open that custom region up, you'll see this window that appears at the top here. And this allows you to take it to some of the other features of PolicyMap. So the clip, table, and download features here, I'll try to get to these later on once we have data on the map. But I do also want to quickly highlight our reports feature. And the reports are really useful because they allow you to quickly pull a lot of data at once for a specific area. So in the reports menu here, you're going to see that there are 4 different types of reports that you can choose from. And each of these contains different data sets. For this example, I think I'll just highlight the first one here, which is our community profile report. And this one's more of like a demographic report that gives you a snapshot of life in a given area. So I'm going to click Generate Report at the bottom here. And then it's going to aggregate the data from within my custom region. At the top of the report here, it's just going to list all the different geographies that are being captured. So these are all the census tracts that sit within my custom region. And then we also have the zip codes here. But if we scroll down a little bit, we'll find data on things like population. So here we can see the estimated population for my custom region in 2020. This is telling me that there's been close to an 8% increase in population between the years of 2010 and 2020. And then it also compares it to the different geographies that it sits within. So Alameda County here and the state of California. We also have data on racial characteristics in here. So just at a quick glance, we can see that my custom region is a little bit over 21% white population and close to 3% African American. We can also see that it has a very high Asian population. And then some other data sets we have in here. So there's age, income levels. Looks like the largest percentage of households sit within this highest range here of 150,000 or more. There's immigration, so the percentage of foreign-born population in the area, which is about 47%, and much more. And the majority of the data in this community profile report is from the census. You can actually see that at the bottom of each data set here. And we did just recently update all of the census ACS data to the most recent 5-year estimate. So all of this is pretty much brand new data in here. And then a couple other really nice things about the reports is that over in the top right, you can always save your report so that you can access it later. And we also have this print icon here, which will download a PDF of the report. And I should mention that these reports can be generated for pretty much any type of geography. So it doesn't necessarily have to be for something like a custom region. You could generate one for a county, a zip code, or even your own library district. All right, so next I'm going to dive into some of our newest data sets. And all the data is going to be found at the top of the screen here under each of these categories. We do have library branches available within the tool, and you'll find those under the Quality of Life tab here. So if you look under this first Quality of Life location submenu, you can select libraries. And this will show us the location of every single library branch in the Fremont area here. So this is just an example of what we call a point data set, which is simply address level data. And with any of these data sets, you can actually click onto each individual point here, and it'll display data for that specific point. So this data set gives us some data on the branch, as well as the library system as a whole. And then down at the bottom of this window here, you'll see this option to get reports. And what this is going to do is it's basically going to create a radius region around this specific library branch. And you can actually go in and specify a certain mile radius. So if we click community profile here, it's going to take us back into the reports menu. So say we wanted to maybe better understand the community within, say, a 1 mile radius of this library. What we can do is just adjust this radius to 1 here. That's going to redraw the circle. And then you can generate a report for this area. And I do also want to mention that California State Library does have guaranteed access to PolicyMap through July of 2025. So we definitely recommend generating and downloading any of these reports. And then really quickly, in terms of the chat, so it looks like some of you are using questions, which is essentially the same thing. So just feel free to put those in there, and I'll be able to answer any of those questions. And you are also able to add multiple point data sets to the map at the same time. So if we go into this education tab here, I can add something like public school locations to the map. And this will give us sort of a point-to-point comparison where we can see which of our library branches are located close to public schools and vice versa. Now, in terms of some of our newest data sets that we actually just added on Monday, a lot of those are going to be found under this demographics tab here. So this is where you're going to find a lot of our census ACS data, which is the American Community Survey. We now have much more detailed age data that includes breakdowns by sex. So if we go into age here, we now have much more options in here compared to before, which is really nice. Someone asked, how do you find the options to choose libraries or schools? So for the libraries, that's going to be found under this Quality of Life tab here. And because that's a point data set, it's going to be under this Locations tab. And it's down toward the bottom where it says Institutions. And then for the public schools data set, That'll be found under the Education tab, where it says Education Locations. And someone asked, where does that data come from? So the library data set comes from IMLS, and you can actually see that in the legend here. So that's the nice thing about PolicyMap, is that whenever you have a data set on the map, you can always find the source over here in the legend. And then for the education locations, so currently this data, well, we actually have two different data sets, but the one I showed you earlier is from NCES. We will be updating this data, I believe, fairly soon to a new source, which is going to be niche. But for now, that data is from NCES. And yes, that IMLS data was just recently updated. So this is brand new. We also on Monday added a bunch of new disability indicators, which are now further disaggregated by things like age here, as well as by sex, and even veteran status. So if we go into veterans here, you can actually view it by disability. So say we wanted to maybe look at where there are a higher percentage of people that maybe have vision difficulty. I can add that data set to the map here. And so the darker colored areas that we're looking at have a higher percentage of people with vision difficulty, whereas the lighter colored areas here have a lower percentage. We also added new indicators on poverty status, particularly for older adults. So if we go into the incomes and spending tab under poverty, you can now view it by age. So we have it for age 65 or older, as well as age 75 or older. Under the housing tab here, we recently added homeowner and renter cost burden data by race, which is brand new. So you can view things like housing costs for renters by race and ethnicity. So if you wanted to maybe look at where there are a higher percentage of severely cost burden renters that are maybe Hispanic, for example, we can add that data set to the map here. Now, some of our newest education indicators include things like age and sex disaggregation for things like educational attainment and school enrollment. And you'll also notice that you can add both point data and layer data at the same time. So if we maybe look at public schools here, we can actually see which of these public schools are located in areas where there's maybe a higher percentage of African Americans with a high school diploma, which again is going to be the darker colored areas, versus a lower percentage. And then under the health tab here is where you're going to find a lot of our CDC data. And earlier this year, we added a lot of CDC mortality data into the tool. So if you go into vital statistics, we have things like disease-related deaths in here. And we also have data on specific chronic conditions. I would say probably the most unique of all these categories is going to be this quality of life tab, because this really contains a wide variety of different data sets that we think affect someone's quality of life. So in here, you'll find everything from criminal justice data sets from the FBI to things like computer and internet access. So we can actually look at maybe where there are a higher percentage of households that don't have any internet in an area. And there was a question about how can I answer specific questions? So someone asked about how they can pull data for their custom region. So let me just add that custom region back to the map that we created earlier. So once you have a custom region or really any boundary onto the map, you're able to, first of all, download that data into a CSV file. And I'll show you how that works in just a second here. And you can also view that data in a table format. So if you click where it says table in this window, that'll open up the sidebar here. And this is going to give you a list of each geography that sits within your custom region. And it'll give you the value for each of those. In this case, we're looking at census tracts. Now, if you wanted to pull this data into an Excel file, we do make it really easy to pull data from the tool. So if you click download at the top of the sidebar here, that's going to allow you to download any of the data that's currently on the map. And what's really cool about the sidebar feature here is that it's directly tied to both the map and the data legend. So in this legend here on the left side, there are really so many different ways to customize the data. So where it says year, we can go back and view it from the previous 5-year estimate. And once we do that, if you look back in the sidebar here, it's going to reflect that change. So now we would be downloading it for the 2014 through 2018 5-year ACS estimate. Same thing for the variable here. So different data sets are going to have different variables available in the legend. So this one, we can view it as percentage of households or by the estimated number. So if we switch over to number here, it's going to give us the estimated number for each census tract. And then again, if we look over in the sidebar, it's showing that we're downloading the number of households. And then same thing for what's called the shaded by, which you'll see at the bottom of the legend. So this is telling you basically the aggregation level of the data. So right now we're viewing it by census tracts. This data set is available at all these other geographies as well. So we could view it by maybe block groups here. Or even by something like zip codes and counties. So you'll find that some data sets are much more granular than others. And that really just depends on the source of the data and how they're reporting that data. So really quickly, I just want to show you what this download would look like. So back in the sidebar here, you can either have the file emailed to you, or if you select this download delivery method, it's going to pop up over in the top right here once that download's complete. So what this will give me is a list of every single census tract in my custom region, and it'll tell me the estimated number of households with no internet for each of those census tracts. And typically the downloads do come through pretty quickly. So within 30 seconds or so. And then for the point data, I'll just add library branches back to the map here. I do want to mention that this data can be downloaded as well. So now that we have the library branches back on the map, you'll see that in the sidebar here, we're now able to download that point data. This would give me a list of every single library branch within my custom region. And that file is just taking a little bit of time to come through. I think my internet's a little bit slow, but hopefully it does pop up here so I can show you what that looks like. Someone asked, is there a way to filter by English speakers of other languages or those with lower literacy skills? Yes, so we do have a lot of different language indicators from the census, and that's going to be under that first demographics tab here. So if you look under language, we have language spoken at home. And it actually breaks it out by different languages here. And you can also look at predominant language in an area. And then someone asked, can you show how to access data from a specific library system? For example, how to access info for Redwood City Public Library. So in order to do that, you're just going to have to add that library branch data set back to the map here. So again, if you click on any of these points, you'll see where it says library system. And this is where you're going to find all that data in regards to the library system as a whole. Now, hopefully these downloads will come through so I can show you what this would look like in a file. But I hope that gives you sort of an idea of some of the data that's available. That's really just scratching the surface. But the nice thing is if you're ever having trouble finding a certain data set under the categories here, that's really what this data search bar is for at the top of the screen. So if you come up here and you search for a keyword or even a couple keywords, So something like food access, for example, it's going to pull up all the different data sets that relate to those keywords. Someone else asked if there's any data regarding overweight youth. So under the health tab here, we do have obesity. Unfortunately, it doesn't break it out by age. So this is for the adult population, actually. And then in terms of some other data customization, you just add obesity to the map. So where it says colors here, you can actually change the color of the range. You can invert the colors, and you can even create your own custom color range. And let's actually zoom down to a different area. Let's go over to Los Angeles. So probably the most powerful way to customize the layer data is using the ranges here. So if you click where it says ranges, what you'll see is that by default, it's going to be set to 5 ranges or quintiles. But you can actually adjust that down to just 2 ranges if you'd like, or even up to 8. But what's really interesting is you can actually adjust each individual cut point that you see. So say we wanted to focus on areas that have maybe a very high percentage of people in poverty or very low. What we can do is adjust each one of these by either dragging the sliders here or by typing in values. So maybe for the lowest range, we wanted to go up to 5%. And then we can do something like 10%, 20%, and then maybe 40%. So now instead of having what seems like our random ranges, you have something here that's really going to be much easier to interpret when you're looking at the map. And then you can even take it a step further here, and you can actually isolate these ranges by clicking on them in the legend. So if I click on just the highest range here, then only the geographies that fall within that range are going to show up on the map. So right now we're just looking at the census tracts in purple here, where at least 40% of the population is living in poverty. So as you can see, there's really a ton of different ways to customize the data just using this legend here. All right, so let's say that we are maybe done creating our map now, and now we want to export it into maybe some sort of project we're working on, or just take it outside of PolicyMap. So over on the right side of the screen here, you'll see this print icon. And once you click on that, that's going to open up what we call the print modal here. So just like the main map, you can also pan and zoom within here. And basically exactly what's showing within this print modal is what's going to be exported. It's also very customizable, so you can edit, the title here, the data description, and you can also drag around these legends. But once you click export at the bottom here, it's going to download a static image of this map within your browser. Now, if you wanted to share a more interactive map with someone, that's really what this share icon's for in the bottom right here. And the two main ways to do that are going to be via this link feature. So this will generate a link to your map. There's going to be two different options. So if you want to send it to someone that maybe has an account outside of the California Library site license, you can click Share Publicly. But if you're sharing it with someone else within the site license, you can use the Share with Enterprise License option. And what that's going to do is it's going to generate this link here, which you can then send to another user. And then we also have the email share feature. And this is basically just going to send that same exact link directly to a specific user. And once they open the link up, the map's going to appear just as it did when you click share. But they'll be able to go in here and interact with the data, customize the data, and use all the other features if they are accessing through the California Library site license. And then a couple other things I want to highlight down toward the bottom right here. So we have the save icon, which allows you to save your map. And all your saved work is going to show up under this View Saved Work folder here. So everything from your saved maps to things like reports, custom regions, and more. Another really nice feature is our citation tool down here. And this takes any of the data that's currently on the map, and it automatically generates citations for that data. You're also able to switch between different styles here if you'd like. And then one of our brand new features, which you can also find toward the bottom right here, is our annotation tool. And what this allows you to do is sort of add your own touches and details to the map. So once you click on this annotation button at the bottom of the screen here, that's going to open up this annotation bar at the top of the map. And what this allows you to do is drop things like markers onto the map, and even add your own text. I was made aware that there is a bug with this. So I don't know if this is going to work for me right now. Oh, there we go. Looks like they fixed it. So you can actually add text in here. You're able to drag it around. And you can also add different shapes and even free draw onto the map. But once you're done making those annotations, just be sure to click Apply to Map at the top here, and then save your map so that you can access it later. All right, I'm just going to pause to see if there are any other questions that I can answer in the chat. Someone asked, is there a way to see the data as a whole for that custom region? So I guess you're asking about seeing like a sum of the data or an average for that area. So right now, there's really no way to do that without downloading the data. I believe our team is working on a new table feature that will sort of be able to do those calculations for custom regions at one point. But right now, there's no way to view like sums or averages for something like a custom region. If you're looking at something like a city, for example, so if I just put maybe the LA boundary onto the map here, you will see the total for that area at the top of the boundary here. Someone else asked about a user manual. So that's a really good question. Yes, we do have this help docs page at the top of the screen here, which is a really great resource because it has tutorials on just about every feature. If you're brand new to PolicyMap, I would probably suggest checking out this video gallery here, just because this breaks down each individual feature into like a 3 or 4 minute video. And then if you ever want to see what new data sets we have available, we do have this What's New tab on the left side here. And this is great because you click on new and updated features, you can kind of scroll through each of the newest features that we've added, as well as the data sets. So like I mentioned, we just added a bunch of new ACS data sets in here. And you can actually see what each of those are. And you can also see what other data sets we've added recently. And then one other thing I want to point out is if you go to the California State Library website, to this URL here, this has different recordings of webinars that we've done in the past for PolicyMap. So I definitely recommend checking those out. But if you ever have like more specific questions, you can always just reach out to us directly. So at the top right corner of that help docs page, you'll see the contact button here. And this is how you can do that. All right, and I know we don't have much time here. There's a couple other features that I was not able to get to. I will give you like a really brief overview of the data loader up here. And this allows you to import your own point or address level data into PolicyMap. So this feature is pretty straightforward. There are some like different formatting requirements for the file, which I won't get into a lot of detail right now. But basically, once you import that file, you can give it a name. You can change the viewing permissions for that file. And then one of our newest features that we've added to PolicyMap is the ability to create filters for your uploaded data set. So this screen here is just telling me how many points it was able to find out of my addresses. And then on the next screen, you'll see that we can actually create filters for each column of data that was in my file. So if you look at the top of the screen here, these are basically all the columns of data that I included in my file. So say we wanted to be able to sort by something like library type. I can just select type here. That's going to add that filter into the filter menu. And now you'll see that I can filter by any of those. And I think I forgot to mention this earlier, but for any of the point data sets that are already in PolicyMap, so if I add library locations back to the map here, these do come with like preset filters in the legend. So if you click where it says filters here, you'll see that we can filter by things like library type. Some of these categories are going to give you a color code option, which basically assigns a different color for each type of point here. So now the orange icons are the central libraries. And then these sort of purplish ones are the branches. All right, I know that was a lot of information, so I hope I didn't overwhelm you guys too much. But just let me know if there are any final questions that I can answer. And another nice thing is that whenever we do release updated data sets, you should get a little notification over at the top right here when you first log in. All right. Well, if nobody else has any questions, someone just asked, are there any additional scheduled webinars? So we do have weekly training sessions that are open to the public, which you can sign up for. So if you go back to that help docs page at the top of the screen, we do have a training calendar up here. And this is where you can register for those. So typically we have one like basic session per week, as well as an advanced features session. All right, well, I just want to thank everyone for joining. Apologies for the chat issue early on. But yeah, that recording should be, I believe it'll be sent out tomorrow in a follow-up email, but that should also be posted on the California Library website as well. So keep an eye out for that.